Let's continue our discussion of Ross Douthat's book, Believe. Why Everyone Should Be Religious. Today is the fourth part of our interpretation. Douthat argues that, in the modern world, even under the scrutiny of reason, religion remains a rational worldview. In fact, he claims that believing is more reasonable than not believing. Earlier, we looked at two questions. Did God create the world? And what is human consciousness? I explained why I disagreed with his views on those. In this lecture, we turn to Douthat's third reason for belief. The supernatural. Douthat maintains as objective a stance as possible, and we will also keep a calm and balanced approach. Of course, not everything science has yet to explain counts as a supernatural phenomenon. For example, physics still cannot explain why the universe is accelerating in its expansion. Physicists call this mechanism dark energy, but no one considers dark energy to be supernatural. Supernatural phenomena, by definition, must involve some kind of spiritual force. What he calls spiritual experiences. In plain words, events involving spirits, gods, or other entities beyond the natural world. Most of us have heard of such phenomena. Perhaps a friend of a friend, declared untreatable by doctors, somehow recovered miraculously. Or someone claims to have sensed the presence of a deceased relative. In ancient times, such accounts were taken for granted. After the Enlightenment, and especially in modern society, intellectual elites rejected them outright. Today, no serious scholar discusses spirits or ghosts, and even ordinary people feel embarrassed to bring them up, as if they were daydreaming or delusional. And yet, reports of supernatural events persist. Some people don't talk about it publicly, but privately suspect there may be something real. So perhaps, for one day in the course of this year-long series, we can examine these claims. Such reflections may help sharpen our thinking. Douthat divides spiritual experiences into four types. The first type is purely subjective feeling. A person feels the boundary between self and the outside world dissolve, merging into unity with all things, connected to universal love or cosmic glory. This is a common experience in meditation. We have discussed it before in Why Buddhism is True and Stealing Fire, both of which describe this sense of oneness. The second type is the unmistakable sense of a divine presence. Usually God. Some report feeling God right beside them, or God's power flowing into their body. God has no shape, color, or smell in these experiences, but the sense of presence is strong. This might be explained as a natural response of devout believers. The third type goes further. Perceiving a specific being. There is a face, a form, or even a voice. The person not only sees but interacts with the entity. A famous case was published, in the British Medical Journal, in 1997. A woman suddenly heard a voice in her head apologizing for intruding, and telling her to get a brain scan, because she might have a tumor. At first, she ignored it, but the voice persisted. Eventually, she had the scan. And indeed a tumor was found. After surgery, she regained consciousness and heard the voice again. We are glad to have helped you. Goodbye. The voice then disappeared forever. Near-death experiences, ghost sightings, and even claims of alien abduction fall into this category. I strongly believe third-type experiences are unreliable. As I've said before, people who claim alien abduction are often eccentric, unable to distinguish reality from hallucination. But Douthat counters. Perhaps only those open to the spiritual encounter it. That doesn't make it unreal, any more than saying love is a delusion, because only people open to romance experience it. He also notes a curious pattern. Scholars who study paranormal phenomena sometimes end up going native. Take John Mack, a Harvard psychiatrist. Initially, he set out to study alien abduction claims as psychiatric pathology. But after his research, he concluded that some cases might be real. His reputation collapsed, and many declared him unfit to remain at Harvard. Another example is William James, the great American psychologist. In the varieties of religious experience, James reluctantly admitted that religious experiences had a degree of authenticity, even though he himself was skeptical. But the strangest category is still to come. The fourth type involves not just personal experience, but physical effects in the material world. Douthat cites two cases. First, Tanya Luhrmann, an anthropologist and psychologist at Stanford, was researching magic as a cultural practice. On a train, while reading about spiritual power, she suddenly felt a surge of heat in her blood, mental clarity. And at that moment, smoke began rising from her bag. Inside, her bicycle light had melted as if by some inexplicable force. The second case is even more striking. In the 2010s, a young German woman moved to the US to marry. She brought with her a broken 1978 Philips radio, a gift from her late grandfather. Her fiancé had tried in vain to repair it. On their wedding day, surrounded only by his family, she felt lonely. Suddenly, the radio came to life, playing romantic songs and classical music throughout the evening. The next day, it was silent again, never to work again. Why is this story credible? Because the groom was Michael Shermer, the famous atheist and skeptic, known for debunking paranormal claims. If even Shermer admits it, perhaps some fourth-type experiences are real. Douthat argues. If such events were false, they should vanish in the age of science. Instead, reports seem to be increasing. He offers 2 points. One is near-death experiences. In the past, few survived near-death states. Modern medicine, by reviving patients, has produced a flood of such reports. This suggests they are not all fabricated. The other is faith healing. Catholicism even has an official process to investigate miraculous healings. Strict enough to require: first, a medically documented incurable illness. Second, no concurrent medical treatment during the prayer, and third, rapid and complete recovery afterward. Strikingly, certified cases of such miracles have increased over the last 50 years. Perhaps partly, because Pope John Paul II lowered the standards. Atheists raise 4 key criticisms. First, scientific method. Such stories are anecdotal, not experimentally verifiable or repeatable. That objection is fair, but spiritual phenomena cannot be summoned on demand. Ghosts don't appear just because scientists ask. Second, hallucination. Near-death experiences may be nothing more than the brain's response under extreme stress. Douthat pushes back weakly, noting that these experiences often occur when brain activity decreases, suggesting that normal cognition may actually block spiritual perception. Third, coincidence. Some serious illnesses do occasionally remit spontaneously. Prayer and recovery may simply overlap by chance. Fourth, Michael Shermer's own case. He admitted it was bizarre, but suggested it might stem from an unknown physical mechanism. Perhaps akin to interstellar science fiction scenario of communication across parallel universes. Douthat objects. Why invoke science-fictional speculation when God would be a simpler explanation? By Occam's razor, isn't belief in God less convoluted? In my view, this debate remains at too shallow a level. Discussing what happened never resolves the matter. I prefer 2 stronger reasons to doubt God's existence. The first comes from Paul Davies's God and the New Physics, 1983. Davies argues that, if miracles exist, they undermine rather than confirm God. Why? Because a perfect creator would design a flawless universe, not one requiring constant intervention. Miracles suggest glitches in the system, like a game developer manually fixing bugs in their own game. If prayer sometimes heals, but often doesn't, does that mean God's system works randomly? Or only for the worthy? Wouldn't it make more sense for a perfect God to prevent the illness in the first place? As Francis Bacon once said, God never wrought miracle to convince atheism, because his ordinary works convince it. If miracles are necessary, is that not a downgrade? My second reason is that, real phenomena should be widespread and reliable. If magic were real, we would expect schools of magic, not random isolated cases. But prayer rarely heals, and supernatural events are far too scarce to count as consistent evidence. Science progresses, but magic does not. That, to me, proves unreliability. If something is unreliable, believing in it is no better than not believing. And if something is perfectly reliable, like physical law, then whether you call it God or physics makes no difference. That's it for today's content. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
If you feel there is value in this, please like, subscribe to this channel, and leave your thoughts or suggestions in the comments section. Let's grow together and read more good books.